Hello guys and welcome back to the solo podcast. I hope you're all well. I hope you're having a fantastic day so far whenever you are listening to this. And I really appreciate you tuning in as always. And thank you very much for the support on the previous episode. So the one where me and Danny did a Q&A. There were a few comments. Theo, I know you're watching. You wanted to see my pretty face. So here it is. It's back. It's right in front of you. It's probably on your big TV screen, mate. But yeah, so we didn't have the sort of environment last week to film the old faces. Just wouldn't have looked that aesthetic. So we decided to give that a miss. And I'm back this week with a solo podcast. Me and Danny were actually just discussing that we'll probably run like a bi-weekly podcast where Danny comes on and we answer some questions together and we do a bit of an update on both Danny and myself. And I think that got a pretty good response in terms of people listening to us both together at the same time. There's obviously a bit of comical value in that as well, which is fantastic. So yeah, I think that would be worthwhile doing, and we'll aim to do that in the coming weeks and months. So to get into, as always, a little bit of an update on myself, where I'm at, what I'm doing, how am I, as everyone potentially wants to know. If you don't happen to care, then scroll down on YouTube or down on what the SoundCloud, iTunes, down to the timestamps, select the first question and just skip my update if you don't care what I'm doing. All right, so a bit of an update on me. So I am basically my second week of mini cutting. So my start weight was 190 and I'm down to about 184. I did hit 183, but then over the last few days, I actually went up a pound and then I've just stayed there. And the only thing that I can sort of correlate that with is a slight change in hydration status, because it was very cold like last week's, the first week of the mini cut, very cold, and that's gotten warm again. I've just naturally drunk a bit more. So I tend to, especially when I'm mini cutting, I tend to just drink to thirst. So I don't really drink a specific amount per day. If I was dieting down for a contest, I'd almost definitely be drinking a very static amount, the same amount every single day. But as I'm not, I don't really foresee the reason why I have to drink the same amount. So I tend to sort of auto-regulate based on my thirst. And the last few days have been very thirsty. I've got some water here that I've just finished. So I've just naturally drunk a little bit more. Obviously, that's had a reflection in body weight to a degree. And also bowel movements have changed slightly since, again, obviously, your bowel or your digestive tract will be very heavily influenced by your environment. So in certain environments, I get used to the environment, my bowel movement's consistent, and then I come back to this environment. So for example, in Sheffield, I was sitting down for the majority of the day, whereas when I'm here, I'm at my standing desk. It's just differences, like small differences, that has a moderate effect on my bowel movements, my digestion, and that obviously has a fairly substantial effect on your body weight on the scale. If you've been/not been, funnily enough, guys, it makes a difference. So you've got to be sort of aware of that to a degree. But nevertheless, it's been going well. I've been, to be honest, very honest with you guys, not lying or bullshitting. I've been hungry. I've been pretty hungry. I've been hangry at some points as well, which is very unusual for me. Very unusual. The last time I felt hungry was a long time ago, probably in my last mini cut, which was last year in August. So it's a very weird feeling, and actually quite difficult to deal with to a degree, because it's been a while since I've developed the coping strategies that I had during contest prep. So during contest prep, not gonna lie, towards the end, it was a breeze because I was so used to it. I just knew nothing else apart from being hungry. And it's why I've stated so many times on podcasts about the fact that you need to have this acceptance, this level of acceptance of the fact that you are going to be hungry, the fact that you are in a deficit, and just fucking put up with it, guys. Put up with it. Just crack on. But right now, I'm okay, I'm mini cutting. What's the goal? Okay, I'm just going to get a bit leaner, just a bit leaner to then go back into a surplus. So my motivation levels to stick through pretty aggressive hunger in the evenings, sometimes even during the midday, is nil. To be honest, I've not got the most motivation to get this phase done, but I'm gonna get it done regardless, because I stick to the phases that I set out. I did since the last mini cut, pretty much a full year in the surplus, and I stuck that out. Even when there was weeks when I really didn't want to eat, my appetite was low, and I was feeling myself start to become that little bit more sluggish, if I saw my logbook numbers going up and I saw a benefit of me adding more scale weight, I was going for it. But for now, like I said, that 190 cap, the 190, 193 cap was sort of just where I found my limit. I found that there wasn't becoming much more productivity in me pushing further. And you've seen it in my lifts, guys. I'm 6 pounds down, and I've actually beaten numbers on some things. I had a really great leg session yesterday with my client, Alex. I beat numbers in my book. Alex fucked his hamstring, so it wasn't a great session for him, but I beat my logbook numbers on my Cybex hack since the last rotation there. I beat the number on the Atlantis pivot leg press. On Monday, I RDL'd 205 kgs for 5 reps. Obviously, that means that Monday, more is coming, potentially. The setup for Monday might not be the best, so I'm sort of thinking about maybe auto-regulating that session a bit because I'm flying. I'm flying to Scotland this weekend for the UKDFBA show, so I'll be flying on Saturday, and I'll be at the show on Sunday, and I'll be getting back on Monday. I'll be flying back on Monday. So I'm sort of contemplating what I'm going to do for that loading in that session. Usually my normal self, I'd just be like, okay, cool, just crack on with it. You've just been on a flight, just get on with it. It's like just sitting down for an extra hour and a half, but it's the flights, whether I'm going to be on top of my food, and I try and nail as everything as best as possible, but sometimes there's variables that do go astray, and the best thing we can do is just create an environment where we try to manage our variables as best as possible. So that's basically a bit of an update on myself. Session's very good, fat loss efficient, going to get this phase done hopefully in a maximum of 6 weeks. But realistically, I think the current rate, if the current rate keeps giving me what I want, then potentially I'll be able to get it done in 4. And that could be quite efficient to then get back into a surplus and essentially just get gaining again. And the next cleanup will probably be a little bit of a cleanup if I need it prior to my full 2020 diet down to the stage. So very exciting in terms of the sense that I've not got that long until I'll be getting fully dug out, and I can't wait for that to happen, to be honest. If someone said to me, oh, okay, it's 2020 now, let's go, I'd be like, yep, cool, I'm ready. I'm in a very good position to be able to attack a contest prep. Everything seems to be in a good spot right now. Business is good. I'm managing my client base well. I'm not taking on board too much. I've got a nice manageable amount of clients. Obviously got a fantastic stable relationship. Got everything in motion. We're going to be moving soon, and when that's going to be sorted, we're going to be in a fantastic spot to, attack contest preps each individually in 2020. So there's lots of cool things going on at the moment. That's really exciting. Like I said, UKDFBA Scotland this weekend. So if you're there, please do come and say hi. Danny on the other side is at the GluteWear event this weekend. I'm pretty sure it's GluteWear event. So if you're there, say hi to Danny. But yeah, so cool weekends planned, and hope you guys have got cool weekends planned as well. So let's crack on to the questions as per. So the first question is on dealing with, and this was actually from one of my clients, Lindsay. This was on dealing with strength loss in a prep. So obviously, as numbers in terms of scale weight, body weight starts to dip. We start to see changes in the way that our body performs, not only from a recovery standpoint, but obviously from a performance standpoint in our sessions too. And this is not necessarily down to people tend to term it as leverages. Your leverages don't really change. It's the reason why leverages potentially have an impact or it slightly adjusts is because your body mass is changing. So the leverages itself aren't changing. It's your body mass that's potentially having an influence on the way that you leverage load. So with that being said, focusing on trying to retain as much as we possibly can without the detriment of execution is the battle that we're constantly having with the logbook. Now, there's two crowds of people. There's the stubborn crowd that will try and retain till death comes past and robs them of their life within that press or within that squat or within that hip hinge and takes their soul out of their body. And that's cool. That's fantastic. Trying to retain, be really, really stubborn and be really, really focused on retention. But at the end of the day, something's got to slip. And ultimately, no matter what people say online, oh, strength loss in a contest prep is a myth. It's not a myth. It's a reality. You're going to lose strength at some point. And to be honest, I don't know, like on the assisted side of things, potentially you're going to be gaining strength to a degree. But I would say because energy availability is consistently going lower and recovery capacity is decreased, unless you're playing about with frequency in a very smart way as an assisted athlete. So as you get leaner, you're potentially adding in more more consistent rest days, and especially around those workouts which are more neurally taxing, which obviously is going to tap into your recovery modalities even more. Unless you're doing that, I don't think you're going to be holding all your strength. Bottom line. I really just don't think you're going to be doing it. So thinking that you're going to hold on to all your strength is not going to happen. Okay, it's only going to end up in you being very, very upset by the end of your contest prep when you have just not retained all your numbers. So my advice, bottom line, is be very vigilant with recording your sets. So when you're playing, when you're going through a session, play back your footage whilst you're training. So like some people will think this is interruptive or this is silly, this is too much, this is over the top, whatever. It's not actually, to be fair. It's a very, very good analysis tool. And what frustrates me is that in certain gyms in the UK, and I won't name gyms, but I've gotten laughed at for filming my sets, and I've gotten called like, tripod boy or shit like that. Like, fuck off. Like, film your sets and you can look at how horrible your form is. I was about to get very irate there, but like, look at how awful your form is if you record your sets. And some of these people are recording their own sets, and they just find it funny to laugh at other people that are doing theirs, thinking that it's taking away from their session or their intensity. Yes, some people have time restraints on their sessions, and I'm very lucky in the sense that I can go into the gym and have quite a lot of time to play with and know that I don't really have to worry about filming a couple of sets and being behind on time, because it's not the reality of things. When I was a PT and I was short on time, I wasn't necessarily going to be able to film everything. But the reason why there's not enough people checking their form and being analytical of it is because of you dickheads that say, oh, okay, I can't, like, you can't film, or like, you're not allowed to film, or they laugh at people filming. Like, and the amount of clients, especially female clients, young female clients that I coach that say, oh, I'm a bit nervous to film, it makes me sad, because you shouldn't be nervous to film in a gym. If anything, it's probably one of the most rewarding tools and one of those most beneficial aspects for a coach to be looking at is video recordings in the gym. So if you want to hold on to strength accurately in a prep, you best be recording your sets, because that 15 kg shoulder press for 10 reps that you had at the start of prep, that you retain the whole way through, and you're like, coach, I've retained all my strength. And then I say in week 10 or week 12 of your prep, when you've retained all those numbers, I say film your press and it's awful. Well, guess what? You've probably regressed actually in terms of not only your actual sort of like from a volume perspective, because you're moving less load through or less time under tension to a degree because you're moving it through lesser of a range of motion, but you've also massively regressed your stimulus. Your stimulus itself is just gone to pot, basically. You'd be better off doing the 10s for your original range of motion than the 15s for a very, very partial range of motion. So recording your sets, absolutely pivotal. And don't ignore what the other people are like and what they're saying. Sorry if I got a bit aggressive about that. Maybe it's the hunger kicking in. Don't know. I apologize for swearing. But yeah, I would just say ignore people around you. Film your sets. And write in your logbook as to whether you thought that the execution was good or not. Don't be the person that goes back and does the set again and again and again if you weren't happy with the execution. So I've had clients do that. They're like, the form was bad, so I just did it again, and then I did it again, and then again. So they redid the set. Not a good plan, because you're just accumulating way more fatigue than your program should be having you accumulate. All right, so just be cautious of that when it comes to strength loss. Also, one of the side tangents to that question, which I actually answered in DM to my client, was whether this would be different male to female or different categories, and it's not. The same thing applies to every single category. The goal hand is always maximal muscle retention, so it's keeping the stimulus the same, it's keeping that execution pristine, making sure that we're controlling that eccentric portion of the lift, and making sure that it doesn't get away from us. Okay, that's we want a consistent stimulus. And don't be that person that's so stubborn that your stimulus just continues to get worse. Very important. Cool. So next question is the mindset of becoming a world champion. So essentially, the person's asking here, it's actually Georgie Boy, is trying to tap into what it takes to become a world champion. So, in my opinion, what it takes to become the best at anything is absolute religious consistency. What do you see within any person that really gets to the top echelons of what they're doing? They have the same process that works, and they just rinse it day in, day out. Day in, day out. They get up, they do the same thing, the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. It works, it works, it works, it works, it works. And obviously they adapt and they create opportunities, or they see a roadblock and they create a way to overcome that roadblock. They see a stall in fat loss, for example, in a contest prep. You overcome that roadblock. You don't get beat. They don't stop just because they hit a roadblock. See, a lot of people in prep, they have a stalling point. They stress out, they worry, they get annoyed, they get frustrated, they get down. They try and change everything. They're trying a million and one things differently. They add in this, they add in that. In a wild frenzy of trying to beat the roadblock. When in reality, a small adjustment or patience is going to get them to that end goal. It's going to get them past that roadblock. So the mindset is that you are attacking a goal with a very, very accurate, like very focused approach to that goal and to that process. Okay? And you've got to be goal orientated the whole time. The whole time that goal is like deeply ingrained in your brain. So like my midbrain has been focused on that world champion status within the junior class, or my midbrain was focused on that world champ status. It's now very much focused on world champ status as a lightweight. It's been on that for a long time, my friend. Like, a very, very long time. And even if I didn't believe that I could do it, it was still there. That thought, that will, that understanding. Because once you train like you're going to win everything, like you're going to win a world championship, once you start training for that goal and you don't just start saying, I'm going to come third at a qualifier, or I'm going to come first at a qualifier. If you train like someone that's just going to come third at a qualifier or come first at a qualifier, you're going to just do that. Whereas if you train like you're going to be a world champ and nothing less, then I can guarantee you're going to get pretty damn close. And that's just not revolving just around training. It's nutrition. It's the consistency there. It's the recovery modalities. It's sleep management. It's stress management. It's everything. If you do everything like a world champion, then you're going to get pretty damn close. People that I see come very far away from that goal are the people that set goals that are far too small. They say, hopefully I'll just win a qualifier next year. Well, guess what? If you set that goal, you're just going to win a qualifier. No matter how much your genetic potential influences what you do, if you truly believe you're only going to win a qualifier, you will never win a British final in that moment of time until you start believing that you've got the potential to be able to do that. It pains me to see that when people set that limitation on themselves. Just if you have the goal of winning like a world final or a British final or whatever, don't go telling everyone that. Don't go telling everyone your goals. You don't have to. Your goals are your goals for a reason, very personal. You're kept to themselves. You keep them to yourselves. Right? I didn't really share the fact that I wanted. Obviously, people knew that I wanted to win a British title, but I didn't post it on Instagram saying I'm gonna win a British title. I didn't say that. I never said that. I said maybe somewhere here and there that I'd like to win a British title. I never said I'm going to, because I didn't have a clue whether I would. I didn't have a clue whether I'd come against Tafa Meiji at the British finals. I'd be beaten by some absolute freak of nature. So I didn't have a clue about that. So you don't have a clue who you're going to compete against either. You don't have a clue. All you can do is control your variables and set that belief in your head. If you set that belief, then everything's going to start coming your way. And I see that already within the specific person that asked this question. I see it already in the other person that asked a very similar question, which I'm going to cover next. I see it in both of you guys. I see it in a lot of my clients. I see that venom in their eyes. I see that want, that fire, that need, that purpose, that passion. Everything's just sort of coinciding. And mate, in all honesty, when I got those 2 questions last night from both of you guys, the guys that asked those questions, you know who you are. Oh my god, I can't tell you the endorphins that were like coming out of my body right now, because I get so pumped for you guys. I don't care who wins or who does super well this year or who goes to Worlds. I don't care who goes to Worlds. As long as I get one of you there, I don't care, because all of you are putting in amazing amounts of effort. And that's what makes me so happy. That's what releases the endorphins, is seeing people that I coach put in the effort that I put in 2017. Put in that crazy, just relentless passion for what we do. And spending time with these people is amazing. You know, spending time around these people and sitting and reminding myself how much I love this process is just fantastic. And it reminds me how much that I actually don't care that I'm not competing this year, because how much of my motivation is fueled simply by coaching people to what I love, to the stage, to British finals, to World's finals. You know, if I'm able to get a junior on that world stage this year in New York when I go out there, because I'll be going whatever, I better be taking some people, because I want some company on the plane. But like, seriously, I will be so pumped. I'll be so excited for that, and it will just remind me how much I just love doing this. Okay, so that's that question answered, and it kind of ties into the next question, which I will cover, and I'll timestamp it as a separate thing. But this is more in the lines of like coaching as opposed to what it takes from an athlete perspective. So the other question was, am I coaching the WNBF Jnr World Champ, and how can I identify this? So from my perspective, obviously I don't know, and I'm not prepared to say that I am. I'm just prepared to say that I'm very confident that within the select people that I'm coaching this year in the junior category, I've got a pretty damn good chance of getting someone there. Okay, pretty damn good chance. I'd say the chances are pretty high to get someone to that world final. You know, whether it's one of my guys or not, I can't control that. I don't have a decision on that, unfortunately. If I did, I'd get all of them there. I'd say, okay, cool guys, like, you're all qualified. Let's all go. You've all had incredible preps. You put in amazing effort. Let's just all go together, kind of thing. But that doesn't happen in bodybuilding. One person goes. Someone asked, the person who asked this question knows this as well. They were like, is it top 3 that go? And I was like, nope, nobody. Like, it's just, you have to win. It's you only, the winner only, okay? And how can I identify whether I've got someone like that? It's pretty much all of the things that I just mentioned, but it's not just having them for 1 week or 1 month or 2 months. It's all the time. It's all the time. It's every single check-in. Every time. And really like ingrain this thought process because into some of you guys that are listening. If you want to achieve something this high, this big, you have got to be non-stop. You've got to be on it all the damn time. That doesn't mean just in your prep. It means like now. If you're watching this during your off season, it means now too. Like, you have got to be on the ball. You've got to be on the ball with your training, on the ball with your nutrition. Yeah, you'll have some holidays and some relaxed periods here and there. That's fine. It happens to all of us. Not during prep, really. Doesn't. But in the off season, you will. That's an important part of being a human. But outside of that, like, you need to be on it. The amount of people I see wasting their off seasons with shitty training, no logbooks, no progressive eating, just basically just swimming around at stupid body weights, either too fat, too lean, or in the middle, and not doing progressive phases of gaining and then mini cutting, gaining, the mini cutting. Just not doing that, just like hovering and not really making any strides in momentum and having the same PBs that they had a year ago. It's ridiculous. But it's cool because I know that I've got so many people, clients and myself, that are just going to beat those people. Because they're not going to win shows. They're going to be looking the same as they did 2 years ago or a year ago or whatever. Like, if I took the same physique that I had in 2017 and tried to win a lightweight title, I don't think I'd be a million miles off. But I certainly wouldn't win, I don't think. I really don't think I would. I wouldn't be a million miles off. Based on the fact that I did a qualifier and I came a very, very tight second to the guy that won the lightweights very recently, I think I'd be confident in saying that I would have been top 5 in that British lineup. I confidence in saying that because he's won it, and I was pretty close to him. So I'd be pretty confident in saying that, but I don't think I would have won it because I'd already got beaten by him. Okay, so like that's something to consider. But yeah, so it's like super duper consistency within every single check-in that I'm expecting from a client that I know will achieve the top echelons of the sport and continue to achieve that because they're just going to take it into their off-season. They're going to be super consistent there as well. So that's realistically it. And I hope that makes sense. I hope that has good cross-transfer in terms of maybe a coach listening to this and sort of wanting to identify whether a client's going to do well or not. If your client consistently checks in and they've ticked all their boxes and they've done their job, every single check-in, you've probably got a champ there. You've probably got someone who's going to do pretty damn well. Okay, so just keep sending them in the right direction. They'll probably be there. Okay, so that's enough of the more fired up questions. I hope you enjoyed that. Now we're going to move on to some slightly more sort of standardized questions, I guess. So this question is, why have I cut caffeine and what have my experiences been? So for background information, I stopped having caffeine completely, apart from if you count the caffeine in dark chocolate. There is about 25 milligrams of caffeine in a couple of squares of dark chocolate. So if you count that, then I probably haven't cut caffeine. But if you don't count that, like me, and you count cups of coffee, etc., or tea, or energy drinks, pre-workouts with caffeine in, then you count caffeine. So I have experienced in the initial 2 weeks pretty bad headaches because basically I'm used to about 500 to 600 mgs of caffeine per day. That's usually my normal amount. Like a pretty strong coffee in the morning, and then follow that up with a pre-workout supplement or a Monster or another coffee, another pretty strong double espresso in the mid-afternoon, early afternoon for my pre-workout. And that was my normal stimulant use, okay? So I cut it when I had that sort of like bit of a nightmare when I went to A&E kind of thing. Which I've discussed with George in a podcast. So I kind of cut it after that because that was kind of a recommendation, and what the diagnosis basically at that point was basically that I was very stressed, and I also had a few other things like sunburn, dehydration, and I took probably an unweighed amount of a pre-workout supplement, pre-workout, and that was probably the cause for the issue, okay? So their recommendation was just cut caffeine down. So me being me, I went full gung-ho and went cold turkey straight away because I was like, right, cool, if this makes me feel better, then I'll just go straight away. So going cold turkey was probably not a good idea, and I don't really recommend this to clients because the headaches are pretty severe. They actually do hurt quite a bit, and they're pretty distractive. So that was the initial sort of couple of weeks, and then after that, I felt pretty good, but also pretty meh in some ways. So be honest, like I feel less energy than I normally have and less sort of buzz than I normally have. So normally, like I wake up, I'll have a nice cup of coffee, and I like that. I like that cup of coffee. I do miss it. Like decaf just wouldn't be the same because I like the taste to a degree. Decaf tastes like horrible, to be honest. Just being honest. So I like the taste of coffee. And I also like the feeling of coffee, especially in the morning when I'm fasted, especially in a deficit. It's nice. You get that sort of like bit of a boost and you feel like you're wired for a bit and you get through a good amount of check-ins or work with that. And I like that feeling. But having not had that, I do feel like I'm a bit slower to get going in the mornings, but then my energy is more sort of, I guess, level as opposed to up and down. I don't have any sort of big drops or big sort of swooshes in energy to a degree. My energy levels are pretty static. So that's my general experience. In terms of performance in the gym, guys, you've seen it. Like, you've seen it. There's no performance drop-off in the gym, and I'm in a deficit. So the other thing that I have actually noticed, funny enough, is inside the gym, when I'm actually there, like, I feel better, because usually when I got to the gym, I'd have really good first couple of sets, and then especially if I was using a stronger stimulant-based pre, my eyes would sort of start hurting, the back of my eyes especially, like, just they'd feel tired, and I'd feel like I couldn't focus on anything, and I'd sort of end up dragging myself through the back end of the session because I was like coming on the back down of quite a high stim pre, and by the end of the session I was like, geez, like I need to go and relax because I'd be like sort of overstimulated to a degree. Okay, so that's what I would say my experiences was when I was running much, much higher stims. So I do feel like there's some benefits, but also, like I've said, there's some definite downsides. And there's plenty of pros of having coffee in your life, to be honest. Like, it's nice. It's a good addition to your day-to-day process. It's not a bad thing. And I don't think I've cut it for like, oh my God, coffee's bad, and I'm looking at it that way. I'm definitely not looking at it that way, to be honest. It's more so for the fact that I just want to basically see if I can operate without it. And for the most part, I can. And performance-wise, I can. Alertiveness in work, I can. So I will probably reintroduce it at some point pretty soon, if I'm honest. Just like a small amount. See how I respond off of that and go from there. But that's my experiences, and I hope that helps some people in terms of whether they want to cut it out or not. I've experienced like small waves of anxiety now and again, especially sort of after that body power thing or just before body power. I experienced small waves of anxiety after that, and I've definitely had less with being without caffeine. But to be honest, it's not something I've really suffered with, to be honest. So I can't really comment as to whether it's reduced anxiety, because I've never really had it. So, yeah, I would say that that's my honest opinion on the anxiety potential effects. So I know a lot of people have discussed that with regards to cutting out caffeine. So, next question is my opinions on what natural show should a novice or a first-time competitor do. So, you're natural, you want to compete for the first time, you're a novice. So I would look towards like the top federations in terms of natural drug tested shows. In my opinion, the UK are BNBF, UKDFBA, and then you can obviously count the MPA in there as well. But if you're brutally honest, like no hatred or harsh feelings to the MPA whatsoever, but their numbers are pretty declined in terms of the competition level comparative to UKDFBA and BNBF, and I've heard some meh things with regards to some of the judging, but again, you hear that everywhere, to be honest. Like, everyone has an opinion, so I wouldn't really put too much money on that one. But I would say that the UKDFBA, BNBF are the most competitive, and if you want to look for a novice class, the BNBF and the UKDFBA both have a novice bodybuilding class for bodybuilding. There is no novice category for anything else, it's just bodybuilding. So if you want to do bodybuilding, you can enter the novices. Or you could do, if you want to enter any other class as a novice or a first-time competitor, you could do the USN Classic at the front end of the season in the UKDFBA, and that's a purely novice-only show. So you could look at doing that. So those are your options, and obviously you have some fantastic options there. Outside of that, just get yourself along to some shows this season, have a look, and see what you think, and see which federation you like. See where you potentially could land up, and obviously develop an awareness as to whether you want to compete with this federation, that federation. Obviously, they're all pretty similar, but you'll develop an understanding as to which one's going to suit you the best, and then you can go for that. All right, so that's my advice on competing in an actual show. And in terms of the drug testing process, so you'll be, if you win your class qualifier, you'll be urine tested, so urine analysis. And if you do the BNBF, everyone's polygraphed at the finals. You pay for your polygraph, have like a 10-minute, 5-minute test with a polygraph guy, and he's an American, and it feels like being interrogated, which is fantastic the day before the show. And yeah, you can do that. And then with the UKDFBA, same approach, the qualifiers, urine analysis, the finals. It selects people that will be polygraphed. So if you're selected, you'll be polygraphed. But you don't, I believe, have to pay for that. I think it's funded by the federation out of what I've heard. And again, if you go to Worlds, you'll be polygraphed again by the WNBF guys. All right, so next question is my favorite music for sympathetic dominance and my favorite music for parasympathetic dominance. So obviously, to explain for anyone that doesn't know what these things are, this is essentially the two branches of the autonomic nervous system. So we have our sympathetic nervous system, and we have our fight or flight states, So we have the sympathetic branch, which is elevated when we train. We release cortisol, adrenaline for that fight or flight response, okay? Our body's under stress. We have to fight it off, okay? That's a natural response, natural hormonal response to that state. And we have a parasympathetic state, or the parasympathetic branch, where we are relaxed, our heart rate is low, our blood pressure is low or back down to its baseline, heart rate is back down to its baseline, and we are relaxing. We're in a position to potentially digest a meal, we're in a position to sleep. So all of these things that coincide with the parasympathetic state are very important for recovery. So outside of our sympathetic state, throughout the rest of the day, outside of training, we need to be in that parasympathetic state to maximize recovery. So in terms of like what I can add to that to make sure that you're selecting, a good approach towards benefiting your nervous system, you can look at numerous things that impact your nervous system. Of course, like music will be one of them. And to cover this question first off, before I go into some more detail and actually use this question to give a bit more feedback or a bit more of a take home from the question. So music wise, you can use music prior to a set or prior to the gym to get you into that sympathetic state, to get adrenaline flowing, to get cortisol flowing, to get that heart rate up, to get the blood pressure up, to induce a greater performance effect. Okay, going into a set, feeling like listening to like I don't know, Ben Howard, you're not probably going to be in a position to attack that set, are you? Whereas listening to a set, listening to like, some rock music or Meek Mill or something like that, which will get your sympathetic nervous system like firing or get you a little bit angrier, pumped up, like Five Finger Death Punch or something like that, you'll be ready to go for that set. So for me, in all honesty, I don't like to be similar to the pre-workout situation. I don't like to be like overly stimulated before a set because I find my focus massively drops. So if I was to put on like one of Jack Thorburns' favourite songs before a set, I'd be gone. I'd be lost. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, Jack. I'd just be lost in the set. I wouldn't feel anything because I'd just attack the set so much, and I'd be so neurologically drained from like just that music, that noise in my head. Like Ultraflex the other day was playing like consistent, crazy rock music, and my eardrums were like bleeding, and I could basically like not focus on anything, and actually had a good session, but I was very just jaded throughout it. I couldn't focus on anything. My favorite is like, Meek Mill, any sort of decent hip hop, which has basically some lyrics which sit with me. And I know that a lot of people can resonate to me on that one. One of my previous clients and one of my current clients, we back and forth send songs to each other that are good. Where the lyrics, they just, something clicks with the lyrics and you and your emotions. And makes me a little bit upset, but also a little bit angry. And that combination of a bit upset and a bit angry makes me go in on the set and attack it. And I find there's something inside of me that just flicks on when I'm in that mode and I'm going for it. Okay, so that is what I use. Hip hop lyrics that speak to me. Parasympathetic wise, actually Ben Howard's pretty good, to be honest. What else? Mumford & Sons is pretty good. Bon Iver. Those are the few that I listen to. Again, there are some like Post Malone tracks that are pretty good in terms of relaxing and just generally anything that makes me feel like upbeat, happy, and takes me back to like a positive phase of my life. So if there was something like a phase of my life where, so like obviously when I used to drive, I used to listen to music all the time. So when I drove, if I drove somewhere and like happy periods in my life or something happy was going on, I had lots of songs that I just play on repeat. And I remember there was a summer in Brighton when I was driving a lot. I was in a very good place and everything was really like very good in my life at that time. And I remember there was a select few songs that I'd play on journeys when I go and see my friends and things like that. And I play them sometimes just because it reminds me of like good times. Not that times are bad, but it just brings me back to really good times, which is nice. So try and find songs again. I find songs that just match the emotion is pretty good. So that's something that you need to look at when it comes to trying to regulate that nervous system response from a music perspective. But it's a very interesting question, and want to hope that people take something from. So what I was going to go on to, I mean, I could go on for probably a whole podcast about nervous system regulation and trying to regulate that response from, you know, a parasympathetic to a sympathetic dominant state. I could go on about that for ages, but I'm not going to. So another one to sort of consider is like, when you are in that post-workout setting, be very cautious about what you are consuming. So not from a food perspective, but what you're consuming on social media, what your eyes are consuming, what your ears are consuming, everything. So if you go home from the gym and you whack on the radio and you're just listening to whatever garbage is on there, you're listening to the news and you hear about all this like bad news and just negative stuff and things that are going to make you angry, or you get stuck in traffic and you just get angry, or you drive home so fast that you're rushing and you just don't get a chance to chill. Bad. Go home, drive home calmly, walk home calmly, get home, meditate, eat a post-workout meal. That could probably be the best setup that you could possibly have. So try to think about that regulation, because it will impact your recovery, and it will obviously impede your recovery if you don't manage this well. So if you're not doing this at the moment, you're listening to this, sort it out, and then get back to me in a week and a half's time or a couple of weeks' time and tell me, message me on Instagram, and implement those things with regards to music, but also with regards to that post-workout, really trying to focus on relaxing, breathing in 5 deep breath, 5 seconds through the nose, 5 seconds out the nose, nasal breathing. Use your nose. A lot of people just breathe through the mouth. Use your nose. Really helps regulate heart rate and bring you back down to that baseline, bring you back to that relaxed state. Tell me how you feel in 2 weeks. Get back to me and let me know if anything's improved. I'd be really interested to hear it, because me personally, in stressed out positions, I can regulate my heart rate. I can regulate loads of things. I can regulate my recovery by just simply being aware of these modalities. And that's without even getting into supplements. And there are quite a few supplements, both minerals, adaptogens, and amino acids that can have a pretty significant effect on the nervous system. So we've not even touched the edge on things that can influence the nervous system. Okay, so we're at 42 minutes. Wow, I've talked a lot on 5 questions. So, question from Jeannie. So, Jeannie's on competing very soon. She's coached by Jack. She's doing awesome. So, big shout out to Jeannie. She's doing amazing. So, it's great to see that you two are working so well together, and it's great to see someone who's just relentlessly chasing a goal. I see you absolutely smashing the Stairmaster, and I know how that feels when you're digging deep and you're on those stairs, and you're I see the level that you work. It's very impressive, very impressive. So, I don't often say that it's impressive, but it is pretty impressive. You're doing an amazing job, mate. All right, so how long did it take me to recover from competing in 2017? A long time, to be honest, in terms of both psychologically and physically. Unfortunately, in terms of it wasn't obviously it was something that actually just completely disrupted my focus and changed my focus away from bodybuilding and away a bit from bodybuilding and onto the seriousness of the situation. Was that the whole period of time recovering from my show or post show, as soon as I got back from Worlds. That was the period of time in which my mum was very, very sick. And that was basically the focus, was spending time with mum and making sure things were good, and trying to spend as much time with her and things like that. So for me, I think I would have recovered a lot faster if it wasn't for that emotional stress, life stress, because obviously just had 45 weeks of dieting and a lot of physical stress placed upon my body with my choice, and then I had the emotional stress, the life stress, which was not my choice, absolutely fucking not. So that was placed upon me post show, that was very hard to deal with in that moment of time. But my dedication, my willpower, and my focus on what I was doing and what made me happy outside of spending time with my mum was so relentless that I managed to get through that phase of time pretty well. However, I think that it made me prolong my recovery from a contest prep physiologically, maybe just delayed the hormonal response coming back because I was so heightened in terms of stress. But I managed to basically probably recover by about 6 months. And that was just getting over everything else and the emotional stress dropping off, etc. But I'd say to be honest, like a lot of the emotions that I held back within that time period, I can openly admit I held a lot of emotions in that period of time, and that was a bad thing. I didn't really speak out about my emotions. I remember when Jack used to ask me whether I was okay. Jack will attest to me just constantly saying that I was fine. And I never really, I felt like I was holding back. When you're holding back like a big cry and you just want to cry, but you don't. I felt like I was holding back that for a long time. And recently I've had a couple of moments where I'll be honest, I don't really care. Maybe it'll help some people. I've just cried. But just because I feel like, and I chatted to a friend actually who was in the same situation. Sorry, Jeannie, to move away from your question, but this is important in terms of emotions and controlling them in contest prep, because it's, contest prep, you're under so much stress, you have to release emotions sometimes. I was chatting to a friend who'd held back a lot of his emotions as well, and it's a very similar experience. And he's just found recently that even a year on from this experience, he's been just in a really tough spot, and it's because he held back a lot of the emotion that he was experiencing. He wasn't honest about how he was feeling, and I've seen that affect actually other people that are pretty close to me. So it's very important that when you're going through something tough, even contest prep, whatever, that you are very honest with your emotions. And if you want to get upset, if you want to have a little bit of a cry, definitely do it, because it's not a reason to suggest that you should be just this mess and crying all the time. No, that's not necessary, especially in a bloody prep. No way. But if life gets the better of you and kicks you in the foot a few times or kicks you in the balls a few times, feel free to get a bit upset about it. I don't think there's any reason to be worried about that or be concerned about that. As long as you can pick yourself up, get back at it, and view that as an emotion that you've let out. The emotion has come out. It's gone. Cool, we've had that emotion. We've been upset for a little bit. Now let's crack on and move on with being happy, because that's what people would want us to be doing. So, off tangent a little bit, but yeah, it took me a long time to recover from the contest prep. And again, an additional sort of take home from that is be very aware of your emotions when it comes to being in a state of heightened stress, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional. All of these stresses add up to your allostatic load, and if your allostatic load is super duper high, you're having stresses from all directions, you're going to be in a position where you've got to let something out, or something's got to slip, and that might be the deficit in a contest prep. You might have to stop, okay? And that's the situation for some people, and I see some people push through those phases, and it's not good, and it's not rewarding. All right, so next question is one that I've kind of covered before, so I'm going to cover this quickly just to answer it as it's on my timestamps. But should beginners use top sets and back off sets? My answer is basically a predicament of how hard you can train. So if you can train very, very hard, you can definitely use top sets and back off sets. Because as your ability to train hard increases, your volume will decrease with that. If you want to train very, very hard, your volume's probably going to be pretty low, because otherwise, let's say you train with 4 sets on a chest exercise and you take them all to perfect muscular failure, you're not going to be able to recover from that. I've known very few people that can recover from that amount of volume. 3 sets is probably someone's absolute maximum tolerable volume on a compound exercise when they're taken to perfect failure or close to perfect failure. Obviously, you're not going to take a squat pattern to failure, and you're probably not going to take everything to failure, but not another rep in the tank with perfect execution. You're not going to be doing a lot of volume. Bottom line, all right? So the moment you understand that is the moment you start making a pretty decent degree of progress, because you'll have your volume at a suitable, tolerable amount. So the question really is, how hard can you train? How hard do you like training? How long have you been training? What is the loads that you're using on exercises? Let's say, you're 16 years old, you're just getting into training and you're squatting 100 kg or 60 kg or whatever. The demand on your nervous system is much less than it would be if you were squatting 180 kgs. So your tolerable volume is probably a little bit higher until you get stronger. And as you get stronger, your tolerable volume will become lower. Simple answer to the question. Hope that helps. Next question, would I consider working with a coach, for example, JP or Cliff Wilson, if I wanted to continue to advance my knowledge? So, yes and no, in the sense that I would work with a coach to build my knowledge, but I love coaching myself, and I've always loved coaching myself for a few reasons, in the sense that if I fuck it up, I kind of want I want it to go on me. I don't want it to go on someone else. I'd feel so bad if something went wrong and I had to almost place the blame on someone else. I wouldn't like that. I don't like placing blame on others. I'm quick to admit when I fucked up or done something wrong, and I'm fine with that. But I'm not fine with blaming others. It really, really grinds my gears a bit when I have to blame others or put the blame on someone else for doing something that I wouldn't have done. However, would I work with someone in an off-season in the future, like JP or Cliff? Probably yes. And if anything, I have very closely considered using someone like JP for my programming. I really have. Just because it would be, whether it would be someone like JP or whether it be Cliff or whatever, I think more closely it would probably be someone like JP, Valentin, or Luke Hoffman, or Callum, or James at the Muscle Mentors. Like, probably one of those guys. Like, just because I know that their knowledge is not only very high, but their approaches do match what I tend to believe in or what I tend to enjoy, so it wouldn't be like a clash at all. I know Cliff's training is a little different to what I would like to do in terms of training, so there might be a bit of a clash there. And ultimately, he's abroad as well. I'm not sure what his communication levels are like, but I'd like to have someone that I could ask questions and feel like I was going to get an answer from them. So for me, it would be someone that probably caps their clients as well to a degree, so I knew I could actually ask questions and I could, send a form clip to them and have some response back on it, as opposed to, oh, good stuff, like the person that asked this question sent a form clip to me today, 2.5-minute voice note within a couple of minutes of them sending it to me. That's the kind of thing that I would like from a coach. And unfortunately, I'll be honest, I don't think, apart from maybe Valentin and Luke, I don't think with some of those other coaches I get that kind of service. And that's not being harsh. It's just I know how many people they work with. I know what their demand is like, and that's fine, And in some cases, I actually kind of like the fact that the check-in process would be simple with some of these coaches. Like, for example, I know check-ins with JP is fairly simple in terms of, sending across some data and some photos and not having to log 1,000,001 things in a spreadsheet. I kind of like some of that process, but again, like, I'm a data guy. I sometimes like the data. So you can already tell, like, I'm a bit all over the place when it comes to what I'd want. So I don't want to mess people around. Like, I don't want to hire a coach and then be like, maybe I should go with someone else. I don't want to jump between 1,000,001 coaches with a process that I'm not happy with. All right. But at the end of the day, trying coaches, learning from them, and then moving on to another coach, I don't see that as a huge problem, as long as you're not screwing people around, basically, which I don't think really many people are, to be honest, especially people that I work with. They tend to stick with me for a decent time period and then decide whether they like the process or not. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. Maybe one day I will get someone doing my programming at least. I can probably handle my nutrition, but having someone do my programming, potentially I'll look into it soon. Who would like to see that happen? Who would like to see me get coached? Would anyone be interested in watching me get coached? Or, I don't know. Comment below if you would like to see me get coached, or would you want to see me hook up with a specific coach? I'd be interested to see whether anyone wants me or would be interested to see me hook up with someone and work with someone. Let me know. All right. So next question is tips on doing your own programming for training. So ultimately, you just need to be very aware, like this is actually very linked to the last question. You need to be very aware of what works for you and be very, very much conscious of sticking to the curve and not getting distracted from what you're doing by what other people are doing. So just because someone just starts doing a snatch grip RDL online doesn't mean that you have to do it. Just because someone bans an RDL around the hips and says that it activates the glutes more doesn't mean that you have to do it. It doesn't. as Luke will attest to. There is no moment arm to the hip. So yeah, it doesn't work. And funnily enough, I had it in a lot of my clients' programs, and I was wrong. I was wrong with what I thought was right there. So, so I'll admit defeat on that one. Because yeah, I learned that the Muscle Mentors workshop. So outside of that, I think that making sure that you don't do too much as well, like being realistic with your recovery capacity is pretty important. I see a lot of people get carried away with doing their own training and just adding endless amounts of sets and volume and just basically just doing too much and thinking that it's going to yield more results. It won't. Like, more is not better in a lot of circumstances, so don't do more just because you think it's better. It's most likely not. So don't get carried away with doing too much. And when you set a program for an 8-week period, please stick to it and just do it for that 8 weeks. Rinse and repeat it. Don't get distracted like going into one gym one week and then another gym the next. And, you know, I think, unfortunately, like, George is probably listening to this, so I'm sorry, George. But I think if George was to do his own programming right now, I think he would change quite a bit, and he'd change too much too often. Just because he's so analytical, which is amazing, but he's over analytical with some things. And I'm kind of the same sometimes. I have to really, really hold myself back because it's very easy to want to do something new or to want to do something different, or to think something's better. And the only reason why George would do something different is because he thinks it's better. But a lot of the time it's not. And he'd quite quickly learn that. He'd be like, okay, fuck, that isn't better. But then he'd have wasted a week or a microcycle of training trying to do something that was better that was actually not better. Make sense? Cool. Next question is from Alistair, and it's on thoughts on taking time away from social media. So personally, I have not done this enough, and me and Danny are going on holiday later in the year. I'll probably keep the destination quiet for a little bit. I don't know whether Danny wants to keep it a secret or whatever. I don't know. So we're going away later in the year, which will be cool. We booked it like a week ago or so. So we're going away for a week, and ideally I want to come off social media to a degree in that trip. Definitely use it less. You know, we were talking about like leaving our phones in the hotel or in the apartment, whatever, for a little bit, and then just chilling out and just relaxing, because I think having that sort of time away, having that removal process from something like social media is pretty pivotal, because it can get very draining. You know, psychologically at the end of a busy day, I sometimes feel just like knackered, and I also get a bit frustrated online sometimes. So I get like a DM and I get frustrated with it, and I reply in a bad way. I even did it today, to be honest. Like, probably replied in a bit of a bad way to a DM that I got, and I'm like, why did I do that? But it's because I'm like consuming too much, and I'm not allowing myself enough time to be in a position to reply or respond to it in the best way possible. So I'd say, yeah, taking time from social media, or time away, from social media is probably a pretty beneficial thing, and I should look to do it more, and probably everyone should look to do it more. That's the answer. Basically, you should do it if you can. Okay, so the next question is a pretty heavy one in terms of how deep I could go into it, but we're at 58 minutes, and I really do want to cover it because I think it's a good one. It was asked by Jack. Jack, I watched a vlog last night. The Jess show day video was very good. Jack McDonald on YouTube. Check him out. He's producing some pretty cool vlogs, and he vlogged his girlfriend's show day, and that was a really cool vlog, and it's nice to see how excited Jess was to compete. I love seeing people excited to compete, and nailing some brownies after. So my thoughts on RIR training is popularized by Steve and Mike. So I think Steve may well listen to this, and Steve will probably find it quite funny that you said that it's popularized by Steve, because Steve will say that he's got it all from Mike. Like, Steve's a very humble guy, but Steve has, like, if Steve's listening to this, Steve, you have definitely popularized RIR training, because you've taken it from Mike, you've learnt it very well, and you've been able to apply it to your audience of over 30,000 people. So you've definitely popularized it. You bastard. I'm joking. That's a joke. But yeah, so in terms of my thoughts on it, I think that it's very applicable to a bunch of people. And in fact, actually, I wrote a program today with RIR in it, and with that approach in terms of, accumulating volume over the course of a mesocycle. I wrote a program like that today. It's very rare that I write a program like that because I don't specifically like raising volume throughout a mesocycle for a lot of people, because a lot of my clients just really, really enjoy training at lower volumes with much higher intensities throughout. And if I was to tell a lot of my clients to remain 4 reps in reserve, they'd be like, the fuck's that? Like, how am I meant to do that, AJ? Like, I want to train hard. Like, I want to train hard and then take deloads when I need them. And that's fine, Like, we can attest, like, me and Steve have both made fantastic progress in our off seasons. I think Steve has made some of the best progress he's ever made in his entire life because he's finally eaten enough. And also had very structured, very sensible, very methodical training. My thought process on that is that Steve has had phases in his training where he's trained very, very hard. His understanding and awareness of how far he can take a set is pretty solid. I still do think if someone was shouting in Steve's ear, 1 more fucking rep, I still think that even in his 0 RIR week, he'd be able to get 2 or 3 more. I'm sorry, Steve, but I really do think that. I think that having a training partner shouting at you, and I know that you don't like that, but I genuinely think that he could get a couple more reps out if someone was there telling him he had to do them, which is just my personal opinion. It's why I love having a training partner. Like, for example, when Cuba's there fucking shouting shit at me when I'm on a hack squat and he says 1 more rep, I'm going for 1 more rep. Even if I think there was not another rep there, I will go for it and I will take an assisted rep. Obviously, from a central nervous system perspective, maybe I'm creating too much fatigue. But when an extra rep is on the offering for me, I'm taking it. Now, for me, I struggle even deloading for 1 week. So I'd really struggle with the whole approach of waiting to have a hard training week. So, like, for example, going 4, 3, 2, 1 RIR. I'd very much struggle with that. Other people that can handle that approach of training and like that approach of training and almost find it rewarding to get to that phase of being overreached and having accumulated volume over the course of a mesocycle, volume being one of the biggest precursors of hypertrophy. Arguably, I still believe that getting very strong and using mechanical tension as your tool, I still believe that's probably one of the biggest things that's growing the best physiques. But again, some of the studies will say otherwise, which is very fair enough. So my thoughts ultimately is that it can definitely work with some people as long as they have an understanding of how to apply the principles of reps in reserve, and as long as they understand that if they had someone there shouting at them, they could probably go for another one. Like, even Mike has training partners, and like a lot of people say, like, but just because you train with RIR, you train like a pussy. That's not true. Jared and Mike, who are both from RP, train incredibly fucking hard. Like, very, very, very hard trainees. Mike's been known to do 405-pound squats for like 4 sets of like 15 reps, 4 sets of 15 reps, I think. There's a video on YouTube of him doing them. And by the end of that last set, his nose was bleeding. Like, he knows how to train very, 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 very hard. So that's my thoughts. Personally, not for me, but I do know that it's for other people. Cool. So I'll take Simon's question as, again, it's a good question, and it's one that will probably help a few people, and it's a pretty simplistic answer. So it's dealing with sickness during prep. So if you get sick during prep, the way in which you've got to handle it is get better as soon as possible. So that really revolves around doing as minimal stuff that's going to tax your nervous system as much as possible. So if you've got something like a cold, ideally, if you feel like it's a cold that's going to get better in like a few days, cool. Just brute through it, get through it, take your cold medicines, as long as you're not a couple of weeks out from a show, because you'll hold some water from cold medicines. Like, Connor had a bit of a cold before body power, and I just said, just brute through it, mate, don't take anything. Because if he was going to take something, it would probably add to the water retention that you already had, and it would cause a bit of a blurred look. I think it was blurred anyway as a result of the cold, but cold and flu medication would probably made it worse. So probably don't take anything if you're close to show, but if you're away from the show, like anywhere above 2 weeks out, 1 week out, you're fine to take cold and flu medication. Take it, get better. If it's something more viral, then you probably need to rest up and stop doing your CV and stop doing your training and actually just rest. And then once you rest, you'll allow your nervous system to get back into that regulatory state or that parasympathetic state, stop fighting off the illness, and then you'll be better in no time, and you can flick that switch, and you can be back into your normal routine. So my answer is deal with it in that way. Deal with it as best as possible. Ultimately, it's very frustrating. I've been sick during prep. I was sick at the start of my 2017 contest prep. I had flu, and it was an absolute ball ache. All I wanted to do was train and do my cardio and get stuck in, and I couldn't. I physically couldn't remove myself from my bed. So yeah, as long as you just get better, that's the main thing. Focus on that, and then outside of that, just have your head on and realize that there's plenty more days to tick when it comes to prep. You can take things like sambucol to potentially impact your nervous system in a positive way. You can upregulate your dose of vitamin C a little bit. You can stay very hydrated. Eat a very micronutrient dense diet. Those are all things that are going to keep you from an immune system perspective in a good spot. Cool. Final question, as I can't do a podcast without answering a question from Christian. So this is a nice question as well. So it's, do I miss traveling alone? So basically, I'll be honest with this answer in the sense that I don't miss traveling alone because I've realized how much better it is with traveling with someone else. I know this is a difficult answer because, if I guess if I was single, I'd be more than happy to travel on my own, and I did really enjoy it to a degree. But when you get there, sometimes it's it's enjoyable and it's fun, but I know, Christian, you're going away soon. You're going to back to Vienna, and you're hooking up with Tom. It's people like that. It's like-minded people that when you go somewhere and you have a chat with them and you surround yourself with them for a little bit, even in that setting where you're not going with him but you're meeting him there, it makes it that little bit more enjoyable. So for me, sharing that time and spending that time with someone, obviously, there's someone right now, and for the foreseeable future, being Danny, is that is what creates memories for me, in my opinion. Now, if I was to think back as to how many memories I created on my own in LA and Miami, I created a few memories, but I probably created more in the last year of traveling with Danny, and those have been memories that hold very closely to me. So yeah, yes and no, man. There's also a part of it that I think is very good from a self-development standpoint. So my confidence massively increased by going traveling on my own. Going all the way to Miami and going there on my own and staying in some wacky, pretty crazy Airbnb, which didn't seem that safe, in Miami, and then going all the way to LA and getting there all on my own, and just doing all of these things all on my own. That was a challenge. That was something that was difficult, but it makes everything else in life seem easy. Someone asked me the other day whether I was stressed out about having to move from here to Sheffield in the future. I'm like, no. Why would I be stressed out about that? It's nothing. All it is just taking my stuff from here and putting it in another place. I'm not stressed about that at all. Hence why probably the ease of the move came so easily for me and Danny, is because we're both not really that stressed about it. Generally, I'm not that much of a stressed guy. I'm actually a pretty damn relaxed guy. It's only when certain things happen in my life that I get stressed. If it's compromised to my health or my family's health, then I get a little bit worried and stressed. But outside of that, I can handle stress pretty well. So I that built me up as a person very, 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 very well. And I would recommend it to anyone that struggles with self-confidence or struggles with developing themselves, and they want to do something challenging. Go traveling on your own. That's a very big challenge. And if you come back from it, you'll feel alive, so alive. I remember getting off the plane from coming back from that and feeling fucking alive. It's a cool feeling, very cool feeling. I'm sure you can relate, Christian. So that's my answer, dude. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you're good, dude. All right, so I will speak to you guys very soon. As always, if we could get 100 likes on this on YouTube, that'd be fantastic. I really appreciate you guys just listening in every single time that I do these things. And if you've got any questions that lead off the back of any of the questions or topics I've discussed today, put them in the comment section below. If you've listened on iTunes, please take a screenshot, or even on YouTube, take a screenshot, take an image of my face, whack it up on your story, tag me in it, or reshare it onto mine, and just get the podcast flowing. Again, I hope this has been helpful, dudes and dudettes. Dudes and dudettes. Why the hell did I say that? Wow. Okay, I'm going to stop this here. I'm going to go and get something to eat, as indefinitely I am hungry. And and I'll speak to you guys next week. We'll probably be back with me and Danny. We'll probably do an audio one, as we'll most likely be in Sheffield. All right, I'll speak to you guys soon, and have an amazing weekend. See you in a bit, guys. Bye.